Hello, clan fans! Alright, episode 4 of Outlander just premiered, and wow, a lot happened in this one. Seriously, the show keeps delivering. I am so thrilled with where the show is going, and we are finally getting into the Revolutionary War segment of the show, and there's a lot to talk about there, but I'm going to do this in parts because there were at least 3 separate stories this time. We have Jamie and Claire, Bree and Roger, and then we also have Ian and William, and that was an exciting one. Without further ado, let us talk about episode 4, called A Most Uncomfortable Woman. Felt a little weird to say that title excitedly, but that was me trying to be enthusiastic. Anyway, so let's talk about Jamie and Claire's story here. So Jamie, Claire, and Ian are heading to Scotland, and while they're in the woods camping on their way to the town, we see that Ian is a little on edge because he fears that Archbug is following them, and he's worried that he might go after Jamie and Claire because he loves them a lot, and Arch said he would take away when he had something that really mattered to him. So, we're getting there, but so yes, Jamie tries to calm Ian down and tells him, like, he's probably not going to follow through on his promise. He just wants you to be worried about it, get into your head and all that. Once the Fraser family is in town, Jamie is found by none other than Cornelius Harnett, who we had seen in the previews. Now, I honestly didn't remember who he was at first, and then I remembered, oh yes, he's one of the Sons of Liberty, who we saw back in last season. He plays a very important role here because he is enlisting men to go fight at Fort Ticonderoga, which is up north, and he wants Jamie to fight in this battle. And Jamie tries to tell him, like, no, I'm trying to get to Scotland, there's personal matters to deal with there. But he's like, well, technically we could force you to fight, because he has the power to do that now. Or he could have somebody fight in his stead. So Jamie thinks about it, and he tells Claire and Ian that he does actually, in fact, want to fight in the war. And Claire agrees to go with him, of course, to be doctor and nurse to the soldiers there. And Ian, he also wants to fight, but instead he's gonna go try to convince one of the native tribes. They're still not decided which side they want to fight on. He's gonna try to convince them to fight on the American side. So with that, that is where the story split. So with Jamie and Claire, this was it wasn't a surprise because we saw it in the previews, but it was still a surprising moment because of what happened. So Claire is doing some shopping in the town, and on the streets she bumps into a man, and that man is Tom Christie, who is alive. And Claire is shocked that he's alive, and he's also shocked that she's alive. And, like, literally right after that realization, he gives her a big kiss on the lips. That part actually got me. I was not expecting that. And I think Claire and I shared the same exact face. The face of surprise and astonishment. But, yes, so he thought she was dead because he had heard of the fire at the ridge, and it turns out he's the one who placed the obituary in the newspaper, which explains why there were a lot of missing facts there that didn't add up. So no, Bree and Roger did not change history. Which, unfortunate for Roger, because that also kind of played in this episode, but we'll get to that also. But yes, he wanted to do that to honor Jamie and Claire, since he figured there would be nothing left of them to bury, and he couldn't leave flowers on their graves, at least Claire's grave. And he is very obviously still in love with Claire, and he tells her that he's only ever loved 2 women in his life, and the first one was a witch. And despite Claire being accused of being a witch, he feels like she was the better person to love, and that she really changed his life and helped him find salvation. And it was a really nice scene where they got to sit down and talk. Obviously, Claire was a little uncomfortable because Tom was basically looking at her with these puppy dog love eyes the whole time. And it's funny how he's the one who calls her a most uncomfortable woman when she asks him what he prayed for at one point. And I'm like, sir, you're the one who's looking at her with these loving, adoring eyes. But yes, I loved that scene. Like, it was a great way to bring Tom Christie back, and I know this happened in the books, but I'm glad that they did it fairly quickly, and there were a lot of explanations and loose ends that were tied up. He didn't know about his son's death because, obviously, Claire and Ian buried him and hid that secret. So he just assumed, from what he had heard, that Alex had left. So he figured there was no point in going back to the Ridge. But yeah, he's doing fine. He was saved because Governor Martin learned that he could write well and was literate, so he had him be his secretary for a short time. And then once the governor was forced to step down, then Tom Christie was allowed to be free and go wherever he pleased. But yeah, he's doing great. Yeah, I'm glad we got some closure on that story. And Claire did as well. I love the part where she told Jamie that he kissed her. That was cute. By the end of the episode, Jamie and Claire make their way to Fort Ticonderoga. I can never say that. And that is where the majority of the next episode will take place, and we will see what will happen from there. I, for one, am interested to see where all of the, just where the whole storyline goes with Jamie and Claire fighting in the Revolutionary War. And I know there are going to be some intense moments because at some point, Jamie might have to face his son, William, on the battlefield, which I don't know for sure if that happens in the books or it's just a fear that he has. But I get the feeling there's going to be some kind of confrontation. I believe William does at one point learn that Jamie is that he's his birth father. So that will be its own confrontation, which will be interesting to see, especially as we seem to be delving quite a bit into William this season. And speaking of William, he had quite the journey this episode. So he is a lieutenant in the British Army, and his men were doing some terrible things at the beginning of the episode. One of them pushed a sex worker out of the door, and I guess he was claiming that she had, I believe, scarlet fever, and that she knew and didn't tell him. I believe that's what it was. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I caught scarlet in there. And he basically sets her on fire. Like, jeez. People were so relentless back then. Yeah, all the men around are just cheering this on. And this poor woman is burning to death. William is the only honorable person who takes off his coat and puts out the fire on her. Unfortunately, he's too late and she does succumb to her wounds. But because he stood up to his men, this catches attention of one of the commanders in charge. And he gives William the task to deliver letters to some of the important leaders in the British Army. I'm not positive if they were, I think they were generals, I'm not positive. Sorry, there's like so many titles to remember. So yes, William is to deliver these letters, and then he is to report to one of the generals in New York, where he will be fighting, I believe. However, while William is on his way, his horse gets spooked by a snake, and William is thrown off, falls down a cliff, not a cliff, let's say a hill, and he gets stabbed terribly in the arm by a branch, and mistake number one, he took the branch out, and that caused it not only to bleed out quite a bit, but he also got a lot of splinters in his arm. Ugh. Yeah, this was a little graphic in this episode. But yeah, thankfully, since Ian was on his way to the native tribe to speak with them, he finds William, and he's able to at least get the splinters out of his arm. However, an infection has set in, so that's going to require some extra assistance. But while Ian is helping William, they actually get to talking, and because William told Ian who he was, Ian immediately knows, oh, this is Jamie's son. And something I forgot to mention in the last video, Ian had found the portrait of William after the fire, and he told Jamie that he knew that he was his son because he saw the way he looked at him, which I was like, wait, when did you see that? So I guess the assumption is that even though Ian wasn't in this episode back in season 4, when William and Lord John visited, it's assumed that Ian was around and he saw them. I guess. Sure, why not? Slight plot hole, but I guess that could be filled in with that. Anyway, he knows who he is, so he wants to help him just for that reason alone. He would have helped him otherwise too, but I think especially knowing that it's Jamie's son, he feels obligated to help family. And so while he is helping him, he tries to talk to him, and he tells him about his time with the Mohawk, and he tells him about a death song that you sing before you're about to die. And also Rollo. Rollo was so cute. He goes over to William and lays down next to him, and Ian informs him that means that Rollo thinks of him as family, like he trusts him. And I thought that was a sweet little moment there. But yeah, I loved the dynamic between them. And I think I had read that they do interact in this, technically what is book 7. So it was nice to actually see that scene play out. Now, because William has an infection, Ian needed to go find a physician, which he did with Denzel Hunter, who, if you all read the books, you know is his future brother-in-law, because his sister is the Rachel Hunter. And so Denzel and Rachel are willing to assist William, and the problem being that because it is badly infected, that means, what all bad infections meant back in the 18th century, amputation, which William was not on board with that, which I don't blame him, but finally Ian is able to convince him, like, it's just something that has to be done. Ian gives William a rosary for comfort, and just as Denzel is about, or he's actually starting to cut into William's arm, I don't want to be descriptive with this, but basically whatever poison was in there, I guess it was a poisonous bush, maybe it was like a poison oak or something like that. All of the poison and all that comes out in the form of pus. Ugh. Sorry, that scene was just, yeah. I can handle it for the most part, but it's still like not something I like to see. Anyway, that comes out right as he's cutting into the arm, so that means he's able to get all the toxins and everything out. He doesn't have to amputate his arm. So that was just sheer luck, I guess. But yes, Ian, knowing that William's okay, he's about to leave, and Rachel goes to talk with him, and he gives her the rosary back, because William wanted him to have it back. He tells her to give it to him, and he also gives her some money to give to William so he can get a horse. And you can tell that there's definitely some interest between them. However, Ian does have to set out on his mission, so he leaves, and eventually their paths will cross again. But in the meantime, Rachel also seems to be flirting a little bit with William. If we want to call it flirting, I don't know. 18th century flirting. She mentions to him that she and her brother have to leave their home because they are going to go fight in the Continental Army, which I guess that's the British Army. I was trying so hard to follow along with the terminology here. I know as much as I can with the Revolutionary War. There are some technical terms, and everyone had a different name for everyone then. And you just kind of have to figure out which is which, but pretty sure it's the British Army because William, he offers to accompany them, especially after she mentions one of the names that he was supposed to deliver one of the letters to, which was a Samuel Wright, I believe. So he figures that's going to help him get back on track with his mission. And yeah, that's where they are heading, up north, which I assume will be Fort Ticonderoga. Yes, Ticonderoga. I'm trying. On to Bree and Roger's part of episode 4. Now, okay, I saw the pictures of Jemmy and Mandy as older kids, and yeah, I was shocked when I saw the photos. I was like, oh, we did a big time jump. Okay. So, last we left off, Bree and Roger were going to purchase Lallybroch because it was for sale. And now it is officially 1980. It was still the 70s back in that episode. But yes, 1980 now. And they are just finishing up the renovations on Lallybroch. And unfortunately, the roof has to be redone because it wasn't done properly. But they don't have the money for that, so they just figure, like, it's nothing to worry about. So they decide just to move in and deal with that later, I guess. But Jemmy kind of has brotherly moments in this episode, I guess. He apparently breaks the alarm clock. He's blaming pixies for it. His sister ends up in the, preacher's hall? Something like that. And Jemmy just kind of seems like he knows something, but he's not letting on. But he blames it eventually on what is called a knucklevy. I think I caught what the description was. It was like a half-horse demon. And I'm trying to think if it's a person. Why is he describing this person as that? Because there's also groceries missing and everything, which I'm thinking, okay, there's somebody, like, hiding in the house. But I don't know what Jimmy is explaining this is, and I'm sure it's in the books. But as somebody who mainly just watches the show, I honestly can't say what this is. But I can throw out a guess here. There is supposed to be the return of a character whom we had seen back in season 5, and that's all I'm gonna say. I don't know if this is him, but possibly. We also see that Bree gets a job in this episode, which I've never been good at interviews, but seeing how she handled this was like, I bow to you. She is going not for a secretary job, she is going for a plant inspector job, which, as her interviewer, Mr. Campbell, says is mostly for men. And she points out all these observations she made when she was on her way into the building, and she tells him, like, oh, I could get you in trouble for this, or you could hire me and I can actually help you fix these problems. And I was like, yes. So yes, she gets the job, and meanwhile Roger, though he's happy for her, he's feeling a little useless in this episode because he feels like he's just not entirely sure what his purpose is, especially feeling unsure about God's plan after they changed history, which, like I mentioned before, they technically did not change history, just things ended up adding up the way they were supposed to. But he doesn't know that yet. So yeah, he's just kind of dealing with that little bit of a early life crisis, I guess. But yeah, he and Bree are just adjusting to life at Lallybroch. He did actually find one of the gold musket balls that Jamie had made from the Jacobite gold. And he is tempted to ask Jemmy about it, but Bree says maybe not quite yet. And they're just kind of trying to figure out, like, do we tell Jemmy not to, like, make up stories, or do we, like, want him to remember his time in the past? So they're just kind of dealing with a lot of, not just adjustments, but just also trying to raise their kids in this environment of time travel and everything. Which, yes, I'm sure that's a really big adjustment. I'm amazed Jemmy has adjusted as well as he has, actually, because he only ever knew the 18th century. Mandy, however, probably had no problem. Also, the fact that they have Scottish accents now. Like, I know Jemmy had a little bit of an accent when he was younger, but I never quite caught the Scottish. So maybe now that they've been in Scotland a little longer, he's just kind of picked it up. So yeah, that was episode 4, and like I said, a lot happened, and we got to meet some new characters, we got to focus on William a little more, and we got to see Tom Christie return and give Clara a big old kiss on the lips. Which, again, did not see that coming. Yes, great episode. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was nice to have an episode where I didn't feel like I wanted to cry. Finally a break in that. I get the feeling, though, end of this half of the season, if they end the episode on them returning to Scotland, I will most likely cry. Because that's just going to be an emotional moment for them. And for the fans. But one thing I loved at the end of the credits here was they were playing not only like the Outlander theme music, but they were mixing in some revolutionary music in there. Like something that you would hear them playing as they were like marching into the battle. And I thought that was a great tie in there. Like, Barry McCreary does the best job with the music. He has really created the sound for this show, and he keeps like hitting it out of the park each season, and it's amazing. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought of episode 4. Like, what did you think about Tom Christie's interesting entrance? And then what'd you think of William's storyline, and what do you think will happen in the next episode? I'm curious on your thoughts. And hopefully this episode will be going up at least by Saturday. And if today is Saturday, then hi. As far as the next video goes, it's possibly going to be a little later because I'm still figuring out my new computer. Unfortunately, my old one did die, which is a little sad because that was the one that I started this channel on, and it's a little bittersweet for it to just die like that. And moment of silence for that computer. But yes, I am hopefully going to be able to edit with the new one. If not, I can probably figure it out on my phone. But yeah, next episode, recap and review will probably be a little on the late side. But I appreciate if you all watch. Thank you so much. And hopefully I can get that video out to you guys soon. Until then, enjoy this one, and I will see you soon for episode 5. Thank you for watching, Clan fans. I appreciate you all, and I will see you soon. Have a good day, good week. Bye.